For many, leadership is about strategy and innovation and vision, but it's also about the hidden inner battles. Many leaders silently carry the burden of doing it all themselves, and they pay a loneliness tax without even realizing it. So in this episode, my guest and I are going to reveal the moment that she shifted from being a doer to someone who empowers others, and why that change transformed not just her leadership, but her life and the leadership of others. Welcome back to the Second Voice podcast, where we uncover the conversations that leaders don't have out loud. My name is Luisa Hogan, and I'm your host. And today I'm joined by the marvelous Kirsten Hopkins, and I am so lucky to have known her for a very long time. And I have so much respect for her leadership, which is why I invited her onto the podcast today, because we're going to dive into the hidden cost of leadership and the isolation and the doubts and the shift from control to trust, and how leaders can stop carrying it all alone. And I know Kirsten is going to have some amazing insights on this topic. As far as Kirsten goes, she is a social impact strategist who specializes in designing and delivering programs with purpose. With a career spanning the charity and public sector and social enterprise sectors, she's led innovation and impact initiatives that drive real change. She's managed accelerator partnerships and innovation funds to developing strategic investment models that help organizations grow sustainably. She's incredible in that regard. And she's a fellow of the RSA, a trustee of a major UK youth charity, because of course she's going to have time to do that on the side too. And she's recognized for her commitment to social innovation and systemic change. She's currently completing a postgraduate diploma in strategic marketing at the University of London. And I know that you're going to have some fantastic insights from her today. Kirsten, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so glad I get to catch up with you again, even though we live on other sides of the world to each other.
Yeah.
And it's been a year since I saw you in the UK. So tell us a little bit more about your leadership journey. Where did you start? How did you get to where you are now, and all of the amazing things that you've been doing?
Well, first of all, thank you so much, Lou, for having me on the podcast. It's amazing to see you again. It's amazing to keep up with what you're doing as well. And it's an absolute delight to be here to chat to you about this today. So I just wanted to say that. I think in terms of leadership journey, well, it's been a lot of ups and downs, I guess, and sort of in all walks of life, in every part of my background, not just necessarily around my career, but a lot of it in kind of extracurricular activities, how you kind of are either forced or naturally step into these leadership roles, right? And I think it's something that drives me is like where I can see maybe there are problems or issues or spaces that need some kind of resolution, whatever that might be, if it's around big social problems or maybe, arguments between people, or, there's spaces that just need some kind of resolution. I've always felt like I need to be there. And no matter what that looks like, I want to be there to enable that to come to a resolution. So I think every leader probably feels that to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Leadership journey wise, in terms of my career, I don't think I've ever been anybody that wants to move into hierarchy. So I've never been somebody to go, oh, there's the next jump and I need to be there and I need to be a, head of, or then a director, and then I want to be a CEO. I've always kind of moved outward more, thinking about those spaces. And leadership for me is really about where's the cutting edge? Where are the next big things coming on the horizon? What do I need to know now in order to future-proof, I guess, whatever I'm doing, whatever I see around me in the world, whether that's kind of from a protectionist point of view, I guess, or whether it's about really exciting new stuff that's happening in the world. I think I really like to be in those spaces. So almost like trailblazing, that's my view of leadership. Amazing. And generally, I think across my career and work, that's sort of where I've been in those sorts of spaces in leadership.
A bit of an accidental journey. You just found yourself on that path and, not aspiring to be, an executive leader, but finding yourself in circles working within that space and trailblazing, as you say. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And, as you know, this podcast is all about self-talk. I want to delve into, what was your self-talk along that journey? Was it urging you on, or were you experiencing doubt? Like, what was happening during that time?
So I think everybody experiences doubt, self-doubt. You hear things around you. You have that inner voice that says, is this really right? Is this going to be a success? Is this really for you? And we all experience that, right, at every point in our journey. And I think what stood out for me most is, I guess, is to take the risk and just see what happens. Like, I'm that kind of person anyway, right? I've never been sort of fearful of doing something. I'm one of those people that maybe would rather ask for forgiveness than permission, and have tended to end up on the naughty step quite often in work because of it, for taking those risks.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think that hearing other people around you saying that they believe in you, that they have seen you do good things or say good things, that your motivations are right, that, take that next step, take that risk, do that. I think that's a massive help, to surround yourself with those kinds of people that have seen your journey and your experiences and go, remember the time you did that, and look at the outcome. That was great. That was successful. You can do that again, but to a bigger scale maybe, or in a different context. Or somebody that's like, don't be so silly. I remember an example is when I started my own business, I was like, will people actually want to buy my skill set? Like, what do I actually really have to give? And so many people around me said, you're nuts to not do it, because of course people will want to buy your skill set and your experiences, even just your wisdom, and I thought, never. But actually I did it and it turned out great. People kind of coming to me. I never had to write a tender or put in a proposal. It was all word of mouth. And I'm so glad I just listened to those people that had seen it and gone, yep, you can do it. I believe in you. You can make this happen. So there is something about surrounding yourself with those sorts of people that kind of spur you on the journey.
Yeah, it's such a theme that comes up in all of these conversations. And I'm always amazed by, it is like I speak to entrepreneurs and executive leaders on this podcast. It's been such a wonderful experience for me because I've heard my voice in so many of these conversations. Yeah. And I'm always amazed by, imagine if we all listened to that self-talk that we've all had, we wouldn't have started anything we've started. None of us would be where we are if we had just listened to that doubt. And sometimes it's just pushing past that and ignoring that voice a little bit and trusting the people around you. And like you say, having those right people around you to support you is a huge part of it.
It is. Yeah, it definitely is.
So did you ever feel lonely on that journey, through this, the twists and turns that you were going through, starting your own business? Did you ever feel lonely in your leadership?
Yeah. I think one of the things that you and I had the conversation about before we started this was about the loneliness tax. And I really like that because it is an emotional tax that you pay, I think, at any level being a leader. And that can be a number of different things. I think people maybe would mostly associate that with, well, I've got a big burden to carry, but I have to show the world that I'm strong, I'm resilient, I can do this, I have all the answers, not show any vulnerabilities or chinks or cracks in the armor. And people expect, I think, or maybe see leaders to be that. Even leaders themselves expect that of themselves and others. So there's that comes along with being a leader. With me, it was probably from a sort of slightly different perspective. The loneliness hits, I think, where you are the only one ready and willing to raise your head above the parapet, as I said before, to kind of go into those unexplored places maybe that others haven't been, and to be the first one in that place to go, like, I think this is the direction of travel. I think this is where we need to be. I think we need to make these decisions to get us to the point where we're actually achieving our mission and being walking in the direction of our vision and like making that come to fruition. And that for me in my journey was an extremely lonely place because people would look at you and go, you're absolutely nuts. Like, how do you see that? Where do you see this happening? How do you see these things on the horizon? Like, it doesn't make sense. Others would go, oh, you're pontificating about, the future. You don't actually do any real work, you're just kind of there in those unexplored places. So you have all sorts of fingers pointing at you, and you really have to kind of stand your ground because you believe so much in what you do, but at the same time, bring people along that journey with you. It doesn't help you're in that place and you're chiving people to kind of come along and saying, I don't know why you don't understand or why you don't see this. It's really helpful to kind of gently, I guess, massage people and move them into that space. And eventually, I think I've seen that people do come along. When I remember that a good example is when I set up an innovation accelerator for a really large charity, and people were going, we can't understand this way of working. It's very agile. It's very flexible. You just go off and you do stuff. You don't have to ask permission. You have lots of autonomy, and people were very, very uncomfortable with the way this is operating. But I look at it now, that's probably about 10 years ago, look at it now, where that organization is and how they've adapted those ways of working. They're there in the future that I had kind of seen that nobody else would believe in. They've adopted those ways of working and those new partnerships and those, the innovative solutions for young people, and come on leaps and bounds. It's incredible to see it when you can look back, the hindsight thing. And I'm glad I stood my ground. It was tough and it was lonely. But I think sometimes you just have to believe in yourself. And as I said, have those voices around you of people that are working alongside you that believe in that vision and can help you, forge that path forward. So.
But what was your voice saying when those people were telling you you can't? Because, before you were talking about when you had the self-doubt, it's about having those people around you who encourage you. But when those people aren't encouraging you, what was your voice telling you to keep that going, only to see reward in like 10 years time when you're like, you see, I told you you could do it. What were you telling yourself to keep pushing that?
I think a part of me was, I reflected heavily on those voices around me that were the kind of naysayers. And obviously that, I think particularly where you're working in organizations that maybe stifle that way of thinking and moving forward, it was very difficult. I think part of it was my love for what I did and the passion I had for what I did. So I think many people, as you said, like entrepreneurs and innovators and people that are in this space, leaders, you have to really have a passion to kind of forge your way forward and find the path through. Like that's what really drove me. And in that space in particular, a lot of my work has been focused on children and young people and families and improving their lives and well-being and their future prospects and all of those things. And I knew that's one of my drivers is like, I have to listen to that. Is this going to make a difference for them in the long run? This is why I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm not doing it for my ego or for the organization or, to get onto podcasts or talk at conferences. Like I'm doing it because I really believe this is going to make a difference to them. And I think when you've got that as kind of part of your DNA, part of the work that you do, I think that's one of the things that really, really kept me going. It's like, I know this is going to make a difference.
Yeah, amazing. It's so important to stay connected with why you do what you do, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like when you know that, it sounds like a no-brainer, but I don't think people spend enough time really connecting with why they do what they do and why it's so important to them. Yeah. And as a leader, I think it's particularly important because the hard days are very often more frequent than the easy days. And what's going to get you through those hard days is exactly that. Like, okay, no, I believe in what I'm doing. I love what I'm doing. And I need to keep pushing through that, right?
Yeah. As you say, there's something so important about especially connecting to the people maybe that you're serving or supporting or working with. Like there's so many leaders that I think feel they have to set themselves up in these ivory towers and be untouchable. I've really rated leaders. Like, for instance, we had one chief exec in my organization that used to do the walk around, we called it, on Friday evenings. This is when we were all still in the office, sort of pre-COVID. And, he used to, 4:30, he used to just walk around the floors and chat to people. And he was one of those people that just remembered everything about you. He'd ask about, like, how's that auntie that was in hospital a few weeks ago? How's she doing? How are your kids? He'd remember things like that. And that struck me. He's like connecting with the people in the organization, seeing what's going on for them on a daily basis. Because no doubt you'd have people saying, oh, it's been a terrible week because of this, that, and the other, and this is going really wrong at work. Can you do something about this? And he'd have to like suck all of that up. But I just thought, what a great way to connect with the people in your organization as a leader, to really understand what's going on for them. Because sometimes if you're a leader, you kind of lose that connection, and then you lose the whole lifeblood of why you're doing what you're doing, and what the best way is to kind of resolve or move forward with some of those things. So yeah. I really like that. I think that's really important.
Yeah, it is. It reminds me of Brene Brown recently on the Diary of a CEO podcast, and she was talking about the marbles, trust marbles in a jar is what trust is, and how trust is created by how many marbles you put in the jar. And she said marbles are little things that build trust. It's like trust doesn't come just because I'm the leader and I'm in charge and I know what to do. Yeah. Now you trust me. It's created by those little things. And what you were describing, that's putting a marble in the jar. Oh, how's your dog? Your dog wasn't well last week. How's your dog doing this week? And how are you feeling? Yeah. You were sick. And, all of those little things are marbles. And then that's a jar full of marbles that creates the trust, right? And
that's it.
Yeah, I just love that analogy.
I really like that. Yeah,
it's really, really cool. So tell me, you've faced that loneliness. What have you done? Have you put anything in place for yourself as a leader to shift that loneliness feel? What have you done to transition out of that, if anything?
So I don't think I've entirely transitioned out of it. I mean, I think that, like you say, there are certain things you can put in place, and experience is one of them, really, where you can kind of see, I've been in a similar position to this before, and I either was an outlier, or I was carrying so much, or I really felt lonely in that place. One of the things definitely that I've done a lot more as my career and my life has progressed is really just making space for other people to lead. And I think, sometimes as leaders, as I said, you feel you have to do it all and you have to be the one forging ahead. But I found, like, I don't trust people very easily. And I might be a bit of an egomaniac of like, I know I could do the best job on this and I need to do it. And it's been very hard for me then to delegate things. But on one level, I've been forced to delegate because I just don't have the time or the capacity or whatever, the availability to do it. And I think that's taught me some valuable lessons when you kind of let go and make space for other people to step into the fray. I think people really surprise you. I've been pleasantly surprised. There are times that I haven't been pleasantly surprised, but most of the time I'm like, just actually creating that space.
Yeah.
Not even saying to somebody, can you pick up this piece of work, but kind of having that enabling environment where people feel they can be proactive and they can kind of step in and say, I'd like to do that, or I'd like to try something new, or can we experiment with this? I think that's helped me a lot to feel less lonely, and to kind of carry that burden of being a leader. And that's been really, really important. I found throughout my career, probably more so like in the last 10 years, I've had, which has surprised me. I don't know why I'm surprised, but I am, that a number of younger women that I've been working with in the workplace and outside have approached me and said, can I have a coffee with you? I want to just pick your brain about something. Or what do you think about my career prospects? Or how do you deal with these difficult characters? Like, what do you do? And I've been so surprised that people would come to me and ask those questions, because some of it for me is just kind of second nature in terms of how I work. But I started thinking about my model of leadership, like how am I portraying, am I purposely doing certain things? Am I portraying a wrong model of a leader to people? And started to actually pinpoint some of the areas that I think I could purposefully start to think about and maybe, I don't know, kind of package up and support some of these other people that were coming to me to ask about, and explore with them what that could look like for them. This looks like for me, dealing with conflict in the workplace. This is how I would resolve it. What could that look like for you, in helping coach them through it? And honestly, the amazing young women that I've seen just flourishing in their space, like they're moving people away, going like, this is my space, I can do this, and have come up kind of either in the ranks of organizations, or they've started their own businesses, or have a new innovative idea. And I just think I played a little part in maybe helping them create that space for them. And that's amazing for me to see as a leader. I think you start to feel less lonely when you can see those people blossoming around you, even in your own team, where they've done something great and been successful. And you can say, oh, I think I had a little part to play in that. And that's amazing to see where they've gone from there. So I've definitely done more of that as kind of life has gone on, I think. Yeah. It's not easy. It doesn't become any easier, but it's great to see when it happens.
Yeah, you start to build a little community. And I think that comes with maturity and leadership too. And you become less competitive and more about giving back. And well, I've certainly found that as I've got older and, approaching midlife, and certainly less competitive and more about, there's room for all of us, and we can lift each other up, and there's room for everybody at the table. And I've really appreciated that. I find that interesting, like that shift in your own mind around, okay, what part can I play in this? And, and having that realization, because some people don't have that self-awareness or awareness of that, you call it self-talk, but because it is self-talk, it's like, oh, what can I do here about that? When did you find you started doing that? Was it much later, recently?
I think it's happened in various, it's probably more recently, maybe like in the last, like I said, 10 years.
Yeah.
And maybe, like I said, it's as I've sort of progressed into those formal leadership roles, I guess, where there isn't the time and there isn't the capacity, and you do need that team around you to be able to achieve what you need to achieve. So, I wouldn't say, I guess if you could do everything, I'd probably still continue doing everything. Maybe that's just a natural default. But I think it's definitely since, life has become way more busy in general. And I think you do need people to be around you so that you're all bringing different things to the table. I've definitely learned that, I guess, in the last 3 years, working within a multidisciplinary team at the current company I'm working at, where each individual has come in with a different background, with a different skill set. They've all maybe studied or kind of have a theoretical base in different disciplines, and have very, very different perspectives in how they would approach solving a problem. And that for me has been a major shift of like, wow, I've learned so much from being around these people, and seeing things from different perspectives and looking at them from different lenses. It's been so helpful for me to see like my own blind spots, to see areas maybe that I don't know as much about that I thought I might know about, and to just learn new things every day. I think that's been amazing. So anybody involved, I guess, in very singular disciplines, I'd probably find they'd maybe be at a disadvantage, and would encourage people to just break free from that and go out and explore and talk to other people, broaden your horizons, think about things, get people around you that challenge your perceptions and the way you think about things. And that's been incredible, because you realize, yes, I've got something to bring, but so does that person and that person and that person, and they're all very different. But together, particularly when you're looking at big sort of social problems and solving those, or problems in change management, or the way organizations work or the way teams work and so on, I think that's incredibly, incredibly helpful. So definitely over the last 3 years, there's been a kind of additional layer added to all of that.
Amazing. That takes a lot of honesty for yourself, but also vulnerability, because I would imagine a lot of leaders out there would feel incredibly vulnerable when faced in a situation like that, where they're not, the expert I mean, you are the expert in your area, but now you have to grow and have other people tell you things that you didn't know. And I would have no doubt that people listening would go, that terrifies me, because that means, being honest about the things I don't know. So what's your advice to people who are faced with that? Because you've clearly gone through it and you've thrived in it and you've capitalized on it. What tip can you give people who are going through that and have a fear of that vulnerability?
I think the more you try it, the more you try being vulnerable and honest and transparent, the better reassured you are, I think, that it's okay, because you see people's reactions and generally people are okay with it. They're not going to sort of haul you over the coals or, say, well, why don't you know that? You're supposed to be the expert in this. That humility, I think, goes a long way. I mean, just this morning I was on a client call and we were talking about VAT. And I was like, I have no idea what this is or what it means. And I probably should know as the lead consultant on this, on this project. And I just went, like, I'm not the expert. I don't know. I should know, but I don't. But let me go and check, with the people that I need to, and I'll come back to you. And the response was, we don't know either, so we'll check on our side. And we all had a laugh about it because nobody in the room actually had a clue about what was going on. And I think just being humble and even just saying, look, I need to go back and check that for you. I think it might be this, but let me just make 100% sure and I'll come back to you. I think people respect that more than they respect you trying to bluff your way through making something that it's not. People are more astute than I think we give them credit for and can see through bullshitting, frankly. So I think openness and transparency, and as I said, the more you try it, I think the more okay you feel with it. And I've really encouraged the team I'm working with, because sometimes if as a lead consultant you can't be on a call with a client, and very often you won't have the answer. Very often I don't have the answer and I need to go check. To just do that, or go and do some like brainstorming with your team about it, or let's come up with some ideas together. I think stuff like that is really, really important.
Yeah. And it builds trust, right? Like I always tell clients of mine that, when we're doing culture change projects, the things that build trust the most within a team is saying, I don't know, I need help and I disagree, because if you can do that with humility and kindly, you have so much better conversation, and then people know that they're getting the authentic you and not the fake you.
That's right. People, I think people generally don't. They don't want leaders that have all of the answers. I think just expressing that kind of, transparency and honesty, and just being grounded and self-aware. I think people kind of respect that, you don't have to have all the answers, but you can say, oh, but we'll find them together. Let's explore them together and let's see what those answers might be. I think people like being part of the, solution-focused conversation. So, it's definitely important.
That was a huge mistake of mine in my early leadership career, early days, where I thought I had to know all the answers and that I had to be perfect all the time. And if I didn't know the answer, then I was a terrible leader. And it not only damaged me, because it just set this high expectation on myself that was never going to be attainable, but it wasn't good for my teams. And the realization when that changed for me, and the depth of relationship I could build with stakeholders and with my teams, and now with clients, 9 years of consulting with my business, that's the philosophy I have, right? It's like, if I know the answer, I'll give it to you. If I don't, I'll find out, and that's just the way it is.
That's right. Yeah. I remember once in a team meeting, I had such an exhausting couple of weeks, and, people, as a leader, people will look to you for the answers, or they maybe expect them. And I remember being in this meeting and somebody asked the question, well, how are we going to solve this? And I just went, oh, I don't know, and it's just one of those moments of like, don't even make me think in this moment or say anything, because I'm just flat out fatigued. And they all laughed. But at that point, one of the people in the team said, hang on, I think I maybe have a way through this, or what about this idea? I can't remember the exact kind of way they phrased it. And they came up with this idea, well, why don't we try this? And it was amazing to see how they just spurred the rest of the team. Somebody else then took that and said, oh, and we could do this. And they kind of built on that idea. And I was just so relieved that somebody had taken, that kind of tension in the air of like, I have no idea what to do here. I have no idea about the next steps. And I hadn't even opened up to say, what do you all think? Now I do. What do you all think? Because I know that, that's a natural space people want to move into or should move into. And I was like, I just thought that was absolutely brilliant. Like without being prompted, they just came up with that. And it took the pressure off me, and they realized, I think for me, it was less pressure. Like I don't have to be that leader that knows everything and has all the answers and setting the direction of travel. Other people need to do that too. And they can. They're more than willing and more than capable to do that. So that was quite a defining moment for me. And I'm glad I do that more often now. I'm like, I don't know. Like,
what do you think?
Can't think about it now. Yeah, what do you think? Tell me.
But it gives people permission too, right? And also it gives them permission later if they don't know the answers for them to say so. Because I'd rather the people who work with me or the team that I'm leading are honest with that too, because then I'm not tasked with fixing problems all the time. And I think it's such a huge part of maturing in your leadership is understanding that you don't have to be the person who knows all the answers all the time.
Yes.
And I think new people coming into leadership now, take that on board. You don't have to know everything, but you also have to have some credibility too, right? So, it's walking that line.
Yes. Yes.
Tell me about your own business. You started your own business, and that was another journey for you. And do you find that that was a different mindset, that entrepreneurial mindset, to the mindset that you have consulting, working with organizations? Tell me about that and the self-talk that comes along with that.
Yeah. So that was, I set up my business a number of years ago. And I think it was one of those moments in life where I thought actually, and I think a lot of people who set up their own businesses feel this, I don't want to be beholden to organizational hierarchies and structures and people sort of telling me in which direction I can go and how to get there. I really want to forge my own path alongside where you have a very kind of specialist expertise. I think that may not necessarily be seen or visible within bigger organizations. It was all those sorts of things and the passion for, I can really help other organizations if I'm just kind of given the chance. But again, it was kind of like, how do I actually do this? The technicalities of setting up a business. I had no idea about anything. My poor accountant initially, not even initially, now he's like, I can just see his face when I'm asking these really downright stupid questions to him. But he's so patient with me. But the fact that I can go, Alex, I don't know about this. Tell me about this. Or, am I doing this in the right way? Like, what do I need to fill in here? And he's really patient with me. But he's got to know that that's the way the relationship is, I guess. With setting up the business, everything from like registering with Company House and the returns every year. And, luckily my now husband helped me set up my business back then. And he was just so relaxed about it. He's like, you can take it all in your stride, one step at a time. And having that, those people with the specialist knowledge of how things work. I chatted to a number of my friends that had set up their own businesses as well, going like, what are the pitfalls? What mistakes should I avoid? What did you do? How did you tackle this? I think was so super helpful, like including you. I think just hearing about those journeys made me feel like, oh, it's okay. Everybody goes through this sort of thing when they're setting up. Even small things like invoicing clients, like what does an invoice need to look like? What do I need to put in? How much level of detail needs to go into it? And I think those are the things you kind of learn along the way. And I think that's really helped me then moving into with the company I'm working now, because I am part of the senior leadership team in the company, but I understand things now about like how to run a business, about seeing things from an economic standpoint, about how important looking at work in progress on your projects are, about assuring you're spending, the amount of time that you need to on projects and not kind of not going over that, about putting in the right rates, chargeable rates in your proposals. See, these are things you kind of don't learn. Nobody teaches you unless you're forced to do it. And having my own business forced me to learn all of those things. And now I'm, probably 70-80% comfortable with them. The accounting stuff, I'm still like, the math stuff. But yeah, it's a journey. And I think having those people around me that I can bounce things off, who've walked that same path, their businesses may be very different. And, I worked a lot in my previous role with startups. So seeing their journeys, and I learned a lot from them as much as they'd learned from me, in the areas that I know about what it takes to run a business and, your commercializing, your go-to-market, what the valley of death looks like for companies that have been running 2 to 5 years and what happens after that. I think really, really important to familiarize myself with those journeys and have those people around me.
Yeah. What strikes me about your journey is, and listening to you, and is, I can hear all of the doubt that you've had and all of this, the issues that came up in your mind, like, how am I going to do that? I don't even know what that is. And what strikes me about you specifically is how you've surrounded yourself with other voices who have helped you, and not only helped you physically, but you've listened to what they've had to say. And it seems to be a theme throughout your whole journey. It's like I've had people supporting me, telling me that I can do it. I've had people tell me how to do it. I've opened up my mind to learning how other people do it. And I think that's a real lesson. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like that's a real lesson that I'm gaining from you in this conversation, is around, okay, if you're going to have those doubts, if you're going to feel lonely, start pulling people around you who are going to have a louder voice than that internal voice.
Yes, yeah, that is definitely a lesson. I mean, I'm still learning that, but I think what I do purposefully now is seek those people out, especially if I'm going into kind of new or unexplored territory or something I haven't done before. I will automatically now kind of go out and seek those people to tell me how they've done it, or to tell me what they think, or to give me those lessons, and as you say, just sit there like a sponge and really, really listen and ask all of the, what I might perceive as really dumb and stupid questions. To them might be super basic. And it's definitely helpful. And you know what? People are so available and so willing to give their time to help others. I think, to any of the listeners, don't be afraid to ask people to help you. Don't be afraid to ask them to give you a little bit of their time, or to just have a quick meeting, or can we go for a coffee? Because people are genuinely, if you're there to learn and you want to hear about what they've got to offer. I've never had anybody who said, "Oh, definitely not. I'm not meeting with you. I'm not I'm not giving you all of my like precious gems and my valuable information." People are more than willing to be like, "Yep, I'll tell you whatever you want to know." Because I genuinely believe people, want to help where they can see other people are kind of coming along the same journey that they have, which is incredible. It's really great to, that people are willing to give of their time in that way.
100%.
And great for us in the learning journey.
Yeah, 100%. So our time comes to an end, and I feel like I could talk to you for ages, always. I always get to the end of these and I'm like, I need another half an hour, but there's never that time. But if you had one final tip, for the leaders out there listening who might be going through something similar that you've experienced, that feeling of loneliness when you're the trailblazer, or the feeling of loneliness when you're at the top and you feel like you have to have all the answers, any final tips that you have for them?
So I think the 3 things maybe that I'd like to leave with listeners, and I've been thinking a lot about this. The first one is, when you might be feeling lonely or kind of out there on your own, or really carrying a heavy load, to name it. So say out loud, the weight you're carrying, talk about it, whether it's to yourself in the mirror or, whether you record it or whether you tell somebody else. I've really found that isolation and that loneliness thrives in the silence. So the minute you kind of speak it out, it just brings some kind of relief and peace. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, we've already spoken a lot about this, but share the load. So number one, delegation isn't a weakness. It's respect for your team's capacity. It's respect for their capability, and also for your own humanity, for your own mental health and peace, I think. But the second thing is, we've already spoken about this. Find yourself a really small circle of trusted advisors. So these might be people that you work with. There might be people in your personal life or that you've known for ages that you can reality check your ideas with, because these are the people that are going to tell you the truth with a lot of care. And having those sounding boards changes everything. And you don't need a crowd of people. You don't need to go to every Tom, Dick or Harry. You just need the right few of people that are your trusted advisors. And then the third one is build a circle. Don't put yourself on a pedestal. Make sure you're surrounding yourself as a center of gravity, I guess, around one shared purpose. So you're not the person in the middle as a leader on the pedestal. You're really a center of gravity with everybody else moving around, and you're moving around them, almost like, I guess, atoms and how that works. So I think that's probably what I'd leave with the listeners. Those are my 3 tips. I was thinking a lot about that. Yeah. So there you go.
I'm never going to think of an atom the same again, because I love that notion of get off the pedestal and become part of this atom of, I love that. Yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah. I absolutely love that. Well, you're based in the UK. If people want to connect with you, Where can they connect with you?
More than happy for people to connect with me over LinkedIn. Kirsten Zara Hopkins is my name on LinkedIn. Otherwise, email is kirstenzhopkins@gmail.com. Hopefully very simple. And very happy for people to contact me, either message me or email me. Happy to have a chat. Would love to hear if any listeners want to talk to me after this, and very happy to pick up on any of the ideas or stuff we've discussed on the podcast.
Get in touch with Kirsten if you work in that space. You are in for a treat. I promise you. I could talk with Kirsten for ages. I'm so happy you came on the podcast today, Kirsten. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For listeners, what I take out of today is that the real cost of leadership isn't just in the decisions that we're making, but it's in the voices that we listen to, both inside and also to the voices we listen to that we surround ourselves with. And I'm really taking that away with me for today, because Kirsten's story really reminds us that the true leadership comes when we stop being the person who carries it all alone and we become that atom. I love it. I absolutely love that idea. So thank you for joining us today, and thank you, Kirsten, and we will see you next time on the Second Voice podcast. Take care.
Thank you, Lou. Thank you.
All right.